Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. We are so glad to have you with us today on a lovely day. And I speak for our whole group, our whole team, and your team, by the way, who are our listeners. We are thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to be here to talk about an important subject. I don't know how many shows I've done on this subject, but I'm going to do it again. And this is a show on cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions. Let's talk about what that even is, okay? PositivePsychology.com has a wonderful, It's a wonderful explanation, wonderful definition of this. So let's start out with that so everybody understands what we're talking about. They describe cognitive distortions as tendencies and patterns of thinking and believing that are false and inaccurate and have potential to cause psychological damage. Yeah, these are incredible limitations. They are assumptions that you made in your childhood and that have been brought forward into your present time. But you remember that assumptions that are made in childhood are based on appearances, not reality, not truth. And so what we have to do at one point is to challenge these incredible cognitive distortions, that we may grow past them and grow past these limitations that we put on ourselves because of these false beliefs. So that's what we're talking about today, and it's a great subject to talk about. One of my favorites, as a matter of fact. Why don't we do a prayer, though, to get us all on the same page and get my mouth waked up and in working order today. So let's do that. Dear God, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to be together, to come together under the banner of loving you and finding out who you are in ever-deepening ways as the aspect of you we are. We open ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do. As we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment, we are very grateful, and we say now and come to you in the energy of knowing nothing, for it is the you through us and through all things that know it all and that will communicate it in time to us when we ask the questions that are pertinent and accurate. So we are now opening ourselves to see what we must do. And we thank you so much for all of this opportunity and for the people that are listening in. And so it is. Amen. John, thank you. I'm getting a happy Mama's Day from John. Thank you, darling. Oh, yes, Scarlett. Scarlett says, give us hope for a brighter tomorrow. Isn't that true? Well, here's the greatest thing I can say to you. And I hope you will take it that way. But we create the life we've got. So let's learn to get some of these distortions that limit us off so you can create a really great life for yourself. Because just because the economy is doing something, or the housing market is doing something, or businesses are doing something, or whatever is going on in the world, you have to ask yourself, am I going to believe it and take it into my world, or is my world going to be a little different? Somebody out there is always making money. Someone out there is always having a job. Somebody out there in the most difficult circumstances. Somebody out there is buying a house, even in this crazy old housing market. Somebody's always doing something. Why not you? That's what I say. Why not you? So, what we do, though, right, is we buy into these kind of herd mentality things. And when I go into businesses, for years, to coach, I'll go into a business. And I remember the recession of 2008. I was working for a real estate company. It was one of my companies that I coached. And they were all down in the dumps. And I said, you want to be the exception to the rule? You've got to think differently. Okay? This is about personality. This is about, let's invent your business differently. And it really was a turnaround for them. We've got to be very creative at this time. I hope that helps, Scarlett, because chaos is a creative time, and it is chaos right now. I went shopping yesterday. I don't go shopping very often, but my husband said, go buy something for Mother's Day. So I have a lot of friends up here that are in retail. The grocer, a woman that owns a dress store whom I adore, and if you're listening, I adore you. And another friend of mine that I ran into. And everybody's saying the same thing. It's just, where are the people to hire? Where are the helpers? Where are they? They're not showing up, So, we have to get creative. We have to get creative. We have to take off some of these negative beliefs about us, our lives, our God, our families in general, dogs and cats, anything else, and realize the whole universe, in spite of the chaos of the world, is supporting everyone who will accept it. That's what we're trying to get you to. Thank you, Scarlett. You have to understand, and let's put this on the table, and then we'll dive into our subject today. Not that this isn't the subject. But we're so busy judging ourselves and removing parts of ourselves that we deem unacceptable. We may have grown up because the school systems didn't teach us according to how we specifically learn. We may have grown up thinking we were dumb. So we don't talk about that. That's nothing that we talk about at cocktail parties. It's a secret belief we have. So we put it in a little box and we put it on the shelf. But here's the thing. None of this stays a secret. It comes out one way or another. Maybe in your quiet times at night when you are talking to yourself. Okay. There may be all sorts of adjectives. And I urge you right now and I may hit some of them, but I urge you to think beyond this show and think of adjectives that you really do believe about yourself. And let's challenge that lie if that adjective is not a healthy one. Because everything, for you to manifest well, for you to be in this dynamic world as a full participant and have the life you want, by the way, we have to have you in alignment with your highest self. Your beliefs have to all be in alignment with your highest self. If they're not, we need to call those beliefs by name. That's the reason I'm doing a show like this. This is the reason I do all the shows that we talk about here. We have to call them by name. And then we have to see if that's really true. One of the things that you'll hear is that children generalize. They had a mean old father, for example. There's a possibility you'll generalize that, grow up thinking all men are mean, or all men have power and women have no power, or all people are not to be trusted. Now, are any of those things true? No, the truth is, you had a mean old father. That's the truth. So there are things that we must accept that we don't want to accept. See, that hurts. That hurts to say something like that. It hurts because you're self-attacking with it. Do you understand? Do you know what I mean by that? So if I had a mean old father, and I admit that I have a mean old father, I've got to say, well, why did I have a mean old father? And the answer for every child is I'm not enough. I'm too stupid. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not my brother. I'm not this. You understand? So we come up with these answers that are all about us. Again, ego, child's mind stuff, right? Because a child is not supposed to think about anybody but themselves. It's them in relationship to everything. That's part of our growing up. At some point, we are supposed to not be so self-involved. Some people learn that, some people don't. We can miss certain lessons as we grow up, age-appropriate lessons to learn. And then we have to double back and pick them up again, right? In adulthood. And learn, for example, to take care of ourselves. In one way or another. Okay. This is how it works, guys. This is why cognitive distortions are there. Now, here's the rub I want to put on the table. And here's why this is serious. Not only they have the potential to cause psychological damage, like positive psychology says, which I think is hilarious because that's not very positive. But the fact of finding them and dealing with them and challenging them certainly is. Okay, so I can see where they're coming from. One of the things I absolutely want you to know, though, is that every single time you use one of these and indulge in this, you have deepened it. This is how issues and cognitive distortions are issues. And patterns, by the way, they can be an issue or a pattern. They become, here's the word, entrenched. Every single time you use these things, you're telling yourself you need to use these things. Who's telling what? The ego child's mind, telling the subconscious mind, you need it. You need this. You need to use it. And so it becomes entrenched. That's why these things are so deep. That's why we have a hard time getting out of the pattern. And unless somebody like me comes along and says, you better get out of this pattern. And here's how to do it. Okay? Now the big thing here, to get out of these patterns, is to write down your lies. And find out why you feel that way. And here's the problem. Most of these things started, if what you're saying, hi, Denise, hey, oh, aren't you sweet? Well, thank you. You have a happy day too. Happy Mother's Day to all, okay? My husband did the sweetest thing. He gave me a card today from the dog. And apparently it opened up and it had a dog head drawn on it, and he made a picture of my poodle. Stuck it up. It was so cute. It's one of those little cards that kind of jump up at you. It was the cutest thing I ever saw. So I'm having a very good day. That was a good day to start off. I mean, good way to start off the Mother's Day, you know. So going back to how to get rid of these are all lies. They're distortions. They're lies. Some people say, well, maybe it's a partial truth. And it's like, okay, mainly they're lies. Mainly they're lies. They have to do, you get in trouble too when you're a kid because you make a pronouncement, you make a generalized pronouncement on you. For example, let's say you make a mistake. You make a mistake. Well, you just made a mistake on June the 2nd, 1969, and this is what it was, and these were the ramifications, and it's over. But what you have done on June 2nd, 1969, is say, I am such a bad person. I don't have what it takes to live in the world. I can't do this. I'm always, I need somebody else to take care of me because I'm always making the stupidest mistakes. I didn't see what I was supposed to see. And do you understand that when you go into layering like that emotionally and beating yourself up, not only are you generalizing and saying your character is flawed, you are flawed. It was only about that period of time. You're not flawed. But you have said that to yourself, you see. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue back. It just accepts what you're telling it. You get it. And that's a very dangerous thing. So what I want you to do right now is then to challenge yourself and say, really, is that true? Because it was just a little mistake. And here is also the damaging thing. You don't grow when you're beating yourself up. You're beating yourself up. That's the energy that you're using. You don't go, wow, that was a mistake. I won't do that again. I'll see that I have to add that in the contract from now on. I'll see I have to do this from now on. I have to be more circumspect of who I tell secrets to from now on. Whatever the circumstance was, you don't learn anything from it. You're just too busy using the energy a different way, which is beating yourself up. Doesn't do anybody any good, kids. And we got to come out of all this because you are tuning into this show to make your lives better. That means change. That means you've got to challenge yourself. If you think you're going to grow and prosper and blossom and thrive without change, it's just not possible. So we've got to make our peace with change. Change is good. It's a movement of God. It may not feel good. Now, here's the thing. One of our cognitive distortions, I don't think it's on this list, but here's one of them, is that God is there in the good times and not there in the bad times. And guys, one of the most powerful things you can do to wake up to all of this is to realize God's here in all times. It is there, used or unused in you. And I say, we open our minds now and use it. I'm telling you, it's the greatest journey you'll ever take. And it'll get you everything you want. Okay? So let's go on. Here we go. There is a wonderful article called 50 Common Cognitive Distortions. Now, who wrote this? Alice Boyes, Boyes. Now, I'm throwing in some extra cognitive distortions like the one I've just told you about. Her list is by all means not definitive, but it's a damn good one to start with. Okay? So, let's begin with her list, and I may continue to throw some in. All right. Remember that, and some of you were not with me in the very beginning, so I'm going to say what I said in the beginning, which is a definition of cognitive distortions from positivepsychology.com. There are tendencies and patterns of thinking and believing that are false and inaccurate and have potential to cause psychological damage. They are distortion of the way you see the world. They are incorrect and erroneous assumptions that you made in your childhood based on appearances. You know, I can't just leave things alone. I had to add a lot of my own opinion. So, there you go. But that's what it is. So, number one on Alice Boyes' list is personalizing. Personalizing. She says, and we have a lot to say about every one of these subjects, taking something personally that may not be personal at all. Seeing events as consequences of your actions when there are a lot of other possibilities. For example, believing someone's brusque tone must be that they don't like you, or they're irritated with you, or you've done something wrong. I hear personalizing a lot. We personalize, particularly when we don't make true connections with people. You all have heard me talk about the difference between attachments and connection. Attachments are when you only give so much of yourself because you're really holding back, but because you're afraid to be hurt, and you are not fully committed to the friendship, fully out there, fully participating, all right? There is a belief that you're going to be hurt, if that is your belief, guess what the universe brings in? Okay? It either brings it in for you to see you have that, or you hide so nobody will hurt you. Guys, neither one of those are participants in life that are joyous and out there. Okay? So, this becomes a very important thing to look at if you personalize. Personalization does come out of a very self-absorbed ego child's mind. It comes out of your standing behind a curtain and hiding some of your energies. Because people that are healthy and balanced just expect people to like them. Why not? And they're surprised if somebody doesn't. And they'll go and try to straighten it out because it's a misunderstanding because everybody's a nice person here. That's a real healthy attitude. Personalize it. When somebody says or does something and you think it's all about you, you see? If you have had examples of that in the last week or two, you should write them down. You should write them down as a place to start with your work after the show is over. Sometime this week, you are going to look at that and you're going to say, wait a minute, what's the lie here and what's the truth here? Now, here's the difficult thing when you're on your own. Here's the real difficult thing. Excuse me, I'm getting comfortable in my chair. I kind of like to lean back. Here's the real difficult thing. You don't know what the truth is. When a lie is so entrenched in you, you don't know what the truth is. So many times when I'm teaching a class on this, which I did my advanced class, oh gosh, I don't know, years ago now. When we first started, even these really quite smart people could not find out, I've just spilled my tea all over everything, could not find out what the truth was. They couldn't find out what the truth was. So they'd go 180 degrees to the opposite extreme. You know, instead of saying, I look for, I expect people at work to dislike me, which is a personalization. They'd go, everybody loves me at work. That's not true either. It's not true either. Here's the truth in this example. I'm a nice person. I try my best. I feel vulnerable sometimes. I want very much to open myself and connect with people, not just attach to them in some shallower way. There's some very nice people here. I'm a nice person. We're going to add our talents, gifts, and abilities and values to this operation, and that's what I can do. Keeping in that attitude. Now, that's the truth. That's the truth. That's not a lie. That's not an extreme, you see? Okay. So you've got to watch going 180 degrees because that's fantasy. So is, by the way, the fact that you're not going to be liked. That's fantasy, too. It's just a negative fantasy and a positive fantasy. And if you have a negative fantasy, I guarantee you're going to have a positive fantasy. If you have a positive fantasy, I guarantee you within 2 days you're going to have a negative fantasy. Because you're playing this game and going back and forth, contractive and expansive energy of the ego child's mind. Do you understand? Okay? I think you do. Let's go on. So her second cognitive distortion, which is a very good one, is mind reading. Guessing what someone else is thinking or feeling when they may not be thinking or feeling that at all. This certainly is an emotionally immature response. Emotionally immature because your option is just to go and ask them what they're thinking and feeling. Right? You put on your big girl, big boy boots and you go in there and you say, hey, I'm trying to do something else with that. So what did you mean by that? Or can you explain it to me? Find out the truth. I hear mind reading a lot with people that don't necessarily want to take responsibility for themselves. You know, a client will come in and they'll say, and you know, they're here to grow out of this. So this is just me talking about the beginning stages, but they'll come into sessions and they'll say, you know, they'll start talking about what the other person is thinking or feeling. And I said, have you asked them if they think or feel that? Oh. And then they'll keep on with that track. They never see what they're doing. It's so entrenched. It's just a behavior. It's just where their mind goes. These are little doors that you can go into that I'm trying to keep you from walking through. This is an easy fix, too. Instead of mind reading anybody, concentrate on yourself and your own health and healing and go ask them what they mean. Go ask them what they mean. Because of other cognitive distortions, because nobody just has one, you're going to think that that's something negative. I can give you a real good example of that in me. So I had a dear friend of mine for many years in high school. And we connected later on because we lived in the same neighborhood. I've moved now, but I think of her fondly. And she had a dad. And her father was a bit narcissistic. And I didn't use names like other people use names to honor people, you know. You call me Martha, I call you Scarlett or Denise, out of respect. But he didn't do that. And I always sense this kind of narcissistic, I'm above it all anyway. So he called me, and my friend would tell me this. Her little wire-haired friend, I had to think about the phrase, her little wire-haired friend. Well, the truth is, my hair is very coarse, and I've always wanted silky hair like many of you have. Oh, you know, in high school, it was like, oh, you blondes had it made, okay? Mine was thick and coarse and felt like a horse's tail. And I was a little, you know, embarrassed about that, I suppose. So when I heard that I was her wire-haired friend, and she told it to me all, you know, throughout our lives, and I never understood it. I just always took it that he was demeaning me. When he died, several years ago, as a matter of fact, she said something again about that. And she always said it very affectionately. And I said, sweetie, what did he mean by that? What did he mean by that? Now, keep in mind, I used to have very long hair, and I was in the theater, right? And I you know, had fast changes, and I put it up in a Gibson girl, and I take it down and put it in pigtails, and I do this and I do that. She said it was because you could do anything with your hair. And it stayed there. And he thought that was just the greatest thing in the world. I was floored. I was floored. Why didn't I ask that before? Why didn't I ask him? Guys, come on. It's a much easier world if we just say, can you explain that one? It's a simpler world. But, of course, then we have to get over ourselves to think, I'm going to be afraid of being hurt. Somebody's going to give me an answer I don't want. Okay, so what? You'll be all right. At least you know where you stand. And most of the time, it's not about you at all. Might even be a compliment in some strange way. Now, I'm glad for my wire hair. So, even though it looks a little extra wiry today. Okay, kids. Number 3. Negative predictions. Overestimating the likelihood that an action will have a negative outcome. It's interesting because I think a lot of times we have negative outcomes because we don't know how to present ourselves or what we are presenting well. This is where a good coach comes in, a good business coach comes in, because they can help you frame it in a better way. But negative predictions also, at its base, have some negative thinking. And negative thinking, I think, is a real problem. There are people that think negatively. And guys, your energy, where your energy goes is what you get. And if everything is negative, if you're always seeing the negative of everything, you're really limiting yourself. Now, you may come by that naturally. Your parents may have been exactly like that. Your brothers and sisters may have been exactly like that. This may have been the negative thinking family. But that doesn't mean that you have to perpetuate that and carry on with that. The problem is, a lot of times when we're making negative predictions and we are in our negative thinking, we simply don't know what we're doing. I was visiting someone about a year ago. Three of us went out to lunch. And after that lunch, one of my girlfriends said about the other, "Oh my God, I've never seen anybody so negative in my life." And I talked to her about 3 months ago, and she said, "I haven't heard from so-and-so and so-and-so." And I said, "Yes, but you will, because she has no idea she was offensive. She has no idea that she offended you. She doesn't have that self-awareness." Guys, we've got to have self-awareness. We have to have self-awareness. Part of self-awareness is listening to yourself. Listening to yourself, not only what you say, not your words, but how, just a minute, Toffel, thank you, no. But also how you think. And the words you say to yourself that are not expressed out loud. Got squirrels on the porch, kids. Pretty exciting stuff. You should have heard him last night when a raccoon made her appearance. Whoop! Anyway, we cannot go through life thinking negatively, nor predicting negatively. Oftentimes, when we are in our ego child's mind, see, I want you all to think in energy, not in personality. This is all about personality. Cognitive distortions is all about personality. I want you to realize that. I want you to realize there's something beyond personality, and that is what the energy is doing. What the energy is doing. So, how you say things, the energy that motivates you, whether it's coming from the ego child's mind, always self-absorbed and always about you, or about somebody else and you being the victim of somebody else, it's all about that, or the highest self, which is about let's do what's in everybody's best interest. I'm recalling an old situation that happened some years ago. It was a business situation. And an employee was very angry because she thought her boss would not give her time off to, as I recall, go to the dentist, eye doctor, something like that. And because she had negatively predicted that the boss would give her trouble, she went in there and practically demanded that she was going to go to this damn appointment. What do you think she got as a reaction? Nobody wants to be talked to that way, but it came out of her giving her own negative prediction. When I sat down with her and sat down with the boss, and I said, let's reframe this. Let's think you are going to have time off to go to get whatever this is. And so you're going to work it out, a wonderful time that's appropriate for both of you to go. And, of course, to the doctor's office or whatever it was. And this was long before COVID. Lord, the schedules and everything are just kind of all up in the air right now, isn't it? But, okay, so be it. This is your life. Be above that. Just have a good one, okay? But that's what I mean by negative predictions. Negative predictions, negative thinking actually influence the way you are going to speak about things. And so self-awareness is making sure you're in your highest self and you're talking from that. Here's a simplistic statement. It's very simplistic. After all, we're talking about 50 cognitive distortions and a lot more on top of that. So this is a very simplistic statement. But why would you appear in public in front of anybody, whether it's a lover or a friend, a group of friends, a business meeting, anything, going to the grocery store, without being your best self that's full of love? Now, we all have bad days, yet, granted. But most of the time, I just think it's going to serve you so much better and not serve you negatively if you get to that loving place inside you. Okay? All right. Number 4. Underestimating your coping ability. Underestimating your coping ability. The dependent personality disorder underestimates their coping ability. They still think of them as a child. Now, a lot of people underestimate their coping ability with about negative events, and they don't have even the dependent personality. Okay? They just underestimate themselves. It's like they panic instead of thinking through problems. So several years ago, I did an exercise with my class when I taught all this to them. And I said, now we're going to stop, and you're going to write down as an exercise the 5 worst things that could possibly happen to you from now on for the rest of your life. Dying, having somebody you love die, like a partner, your house burning down, we just went through everything. There was everything on that list, because everybody was afraid of certain things. And I said, okay, now take that list, and I want you to write a list of anywhere from 5 to 10 things that you would do about that immediately if that happened right now. And everybody then took the heading of the tragedy, of course, what they were presuming it was the tragedy, and wrote 5 or 10 things that they would do. Who to call first, what to do, who to call next, how to do this, And I said, okay. And we read all that out loud, and I said, so what'd you get from this? And they said, we all know how to cope. We all know how to do this. We're just telling ourselves we don't. I said, yeah, that's absolutely right. That's ego child's mind for you, telling yourself you don't know how to do it, but you do. Now, I think that's a very good thing for you. If you have not thought through, because here's the thing, if you've got the avoidant personality, okay, that's a cognitive distortion too, is to avoid everything. And that's also even in the DSM, people that have hyper avoidance. It's avoidant personality disorder. They don't want to do that. They don't want to look at that. I can't even abide thinking that I might lose this person, or my house might burn down and all my memories will go with it. Well, if it's scaring you to death, you need to do this exercise. You need to say you could cope. You need to show yourself your own empowerment. Don't you get it? You cannot stay the child and stay dependent on another and be empowered. It's not going to happen that way. Prove to yourself you're an empowered person. Does anybody like those things to happen in their lives? Whoa, absolutely not. Are they part of life? Sometimes they are. Show yourself that you'll be all right. Please do that. Because God does not desert you in those times. God's right there with all the options for you. And you're going to be all right. What is that old phrase? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's true. It's like a broken bone, right? If I shattered this part of my arm and it healed, all right, it's going to be a stronger bone because of the fracture. So we got to get realistic about this, right? Number 5, and this is kind of a sister to what we just talked about, is catastrophizing. Thinking of unpleasant events as catastrophes. I don't know whether you all have been watching this Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. I haven't been watching it. Quite frankly, the whole thing makes me sick. I don't know what happened to personal dignity, but it's flown out the window. At least with these two people. Anyway, if you've been watching that, there is a lot of catastrophizing going on with Amber Heard. And the histrionic personality, hello, Barbara. Oh, and Becky, hello, darling. No, I'm so glad that you all are with me. Barbara, I'm so glad to have a connection with you. I have missed you, my darling. But yes, and by the way, my darling Barbara is a marvelous psychologist. And I just adore her. And I miss her in my life. So come and see me. Come and see me soon. And she says, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, from The Wizard of Oz. Catastrophizing. Catastrophizing, oftentimes, now again, you can have some personality disorders that are contributing to this. One is the histrionic personality disorder that makes everything very dramatic. And I've addressed the histrionic thing before because it's interesting. In histrionics, everybody looks like they're feeling very deeply, and it's designed to look that way, but nobody is going down there and really feeling anything. It's just all spinning around on the top. A lot of drama, a lot of crying, a lot of, oh my God. And, but it isn't down there in the depths. That's not saying what happened and what didn't happen to these people. I don't know, quite frankly. It's their problem. I don't know. But I will say, you don't want it. You don't want this histrionic stuff. And you don't want to catastrophize. Accept things just as they are. Accept things just as they are. In other words, it's not the end of the world that you have a fender bender. It feels like the end of the world because you self-attack. Oh, I'm always doing the stupidest things. I'm so dumb. I can't trust myself. That's what you're doing. Some version of that. Instead of going, I looked down, I was changing the channel of the radio, I didn't realize the car had stopped up in front of me, and I hit them. I'm very sorry I did that. I'm going to be a lot more careful from now on. That's all there is here, guys. There are families. Becky says guilty. Well, good. Wake up to this. Because let me tell you, this histrionic crap is horrible for you. It is just awful. Making everything a drama is not healthy. And it's going to bite you on the butt. Because you wait till something really bad happens to you and you won't be able to cope and think of that list that we're talking about. Because you're too busy in the drama. Nothing is dramatic here like that. You have got to drop and challenge yourself on these lies when you push it too far and say it's more dramatic and more catastrophic than it is. Just let it be about what happened, not about you and how bad you are. Okay? Good. That's a really important one to get to, kids. As much as I hate to say, watch that to see it, but you can watch that to see it. It's just sickening when somebody does that. And the thing about it is, one of the reasons it's also controversial, and everybody is taking sides, is because somebody believes that crap and somebody doesn't believe that crap. Do you want to be a light-filled, wise person standing in the world, a full participant here? Then don't do that. If you want to be taken seriously and have credibility in this moment and all the others, just say what's true. You see? Number 6. May I take a sip of tea? I love my PG tips. PG tips are a kind of tea, you know. Ooh, it's a good black tea. Number 6. Biased attention toward signs of social rejection and lack of attention to signs of social acceptance. She goes on to say, and then I'll jump in there. For example, during social interactions, paying attention to someone yawning and assuming you're boring them, but not paying the same degree of attention to other cues that suggest they are interested in what you're saying, such as leaning forward to you or asking questions or something like that. I'm thinking of a dear person that I love with all my heart, gets more kudos than anybody I've ever seen. Doesn't hear any of them. She dismisses them energetically. You know, it's like they come, they momentarily feel good, and she's afraid to feel good, so she kind of diminishes those things. And she exaggerates, catastrophizes everything that could slightly be misconstrued as negative. And she is misconstruing. Okay. Guys, how do I want to say this? Well, I'll tell you a story that meant a lot to me. One of my dear mentors and friends was named Mel Glass. Mel Glass was an actor in New York for a long time. He was the original Alka-Seltzer commercial, the man sitting on the side of the bed. I can't believe I ate the whole thing, if you all recall that. That was Mel. And he did Broadway, and he came to Atlanta when I was in the theater, and he was quite the impresario and directed a lot of my shows. He was a lovely human being. And I can't remember I don't even know what show this was, but I got a really good review, right? And he was sitting in the dressing room with me one day, and he said, you know, if you believe the good reviews, you got to believe the bad reviews. If you believe the bad reviews, you got to believe the good reviews. That's really an incredible lesson in life, because that's a game we play. And here's what we should be thinking instead. In this moment, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to collect information. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to love more. I'm going to, hear this person out. In this moment, I'm going to do the very best I can. And that's really the richness of every moment, isn't it? It is. It's not about believing anybody else's opinion. It's about you staying here and doing the best you can with what you've got. Right now, in this moment, the literal moment. and then in the next, and then in the next. I hope that makes sense to you. Because I really heard him when he said that to me, and he was right. It isn't about what the reviews say. It's about, are you going to do a good show right now? Are you going to go out there and do a good show minute by minute? Be honest and sincere and bring everything you can to the character and not hold back. You're going to do that? There are a lot of actors that aren't very good actors because they don't want to be hurt by their audience, and they withhold. What mind do you think they're in? The ego child's mind and the highest self mind? Yes, the ego child's mind. There are a lot of actors that are acting with the ego child's mind instead of the highest self mind, which is really about, and all artists like this, whether you paint or write or whatever or act, it's about taking everything you've got and saying, here it is, appropriate to the character, to what you're doing, to the art form, and letting people pick through it. They're in charge of what they think about it. You just stay in you and do the best you can. Moment by moment. Number 7. How's our time? Negatively biased recall of social encounters. And she goes on to say, this is Alice Boyes, by the way, remembering negatives from a social situation while not remembering the positives. For example, remembering losing your place for a few seconds while giving a talk. I just demonstrated that, but not remembering the huge clap you got at the end of the standing ovation. Right? When I was teaching acting a lot in a formal situation for years, right? I had an acting school. And one time for life got too busy. And I found this with actors when they were ready to, when their talent was ready to go out and they were ready to show that talent by auditioning. They would play over in their minds every moment of that audition and what they said, and tried to, by the way, mind read what the auditioner was thinking. Oh, it was the most insecure thing I'd ever seen in my life, and I would just tell them, you need a lot more work. But on yourself now, now that your talent is up there, we've got to, these things run parallel. They should, anyway. But you can have somebody real emotionally stunted that's very talented. You could have someone who's moderately motivated never use their talents. They get distracted. There are all sorts of scenarios, but the ideal situation is when you grow both of those things at the same time. So, if you find yourself thinking about social interactions and what they said and what you said and what they said and what you said, wondering if what you said was right, you're in the wrong mind. You understand? Because that's just this game that we play. Instead of realizing every moment I do the best I can. And having that consciousness in those moments. So you're in a social situation and you're in your highest self. You've prepared to get there. Guys, I just had a talk with one of my team members the other day about this, because everybody sees me getting in that highest self right away. I've only had 50 years of it, or 45 years of it, 48 years of it. I've been doing this for a long time. Anybody who's new to this needs to prepare themselves. There's a lot about this in that 3 CD set that you can download on my website called the IT series. It is now mounted well. One of my darling friends was kind enough to say, there's a problem with this. It was corrupted, so we remounted it. Perfectly fine now. So it is, it's so important to be conscious in the moment of listening, of doing the best you can, of being who you are, even if you're quiet and listening to something. Having an opinion, being interested. And funny, I don't know why I'm telling you so many acting stories today, but I think of Michael Caine, who told this story about how to stay in a scene even if he was quiet, because you got to stay in the scene, you can't just drift away. I've known people that energetically pull themselves in so far that they're not there. You know, you got a group of people standing around talking, they're not there. You forget they're there the whole night. Okay? It isn't that you're a bad person. It's that we remember the energy, and you've got to stay a participant. So the Michael Caine story is this. He was in a play, and he didn't have any lines in this play. They call it a walk-on. And he was just a, you know, what they say in film, you're an extra. It's the same thing. So he's with a champagne glass up near the fireplace upstage. That means the furthest away from the audience. And he's standing there supposedly talking to someone. And the director called this rehearsal and said, "Hey, honey," excuse me, my dog wants to come up. Come on. Okay, so this is Toffel. He says hello. Yes, he's going bohemian with a feather in his hair. Director called the rehearsal, said, "Come over here." And he had Michael come over. He gave everybody 5. And he said, "What are you doing?" And Michael Caine said, "Nothing." And the director said, "Why are you doing nothing?" And he said, "Well, I don't have any lines." And the director said, "You're wrong. You have all the lines in the world. You have all the opinions in the world. About every single thing that is being said and done in that room, you have an opinion, but you just don't say it. You get right to the point where you're going to say it, and you just don't." And I thought that was just a brilliant way of saying, that's you. Don't go anywhere. You see, you learned when you were a kid, and there was any kind of perceived threat, you literally moved out of your body. You were over there. Our bodies, literally, our energetic bodies literally move to the right and left side of us, okay, depending on what side of the brain, what hemisphere of the brain is activated. And we clam up and we pull our energy down, and that adds to the situation that we're just not even there. But that's not how to be a dynamic person. And you don't have to talk or show people how smart you are. You just simply have to stay there in the moment. Isn't that hard? Because all these devices, do you realize, every single thing I've mentioned really are taking you out of the moment. It's all about the past and what you used to do and how you respond to all of these situations. You see? They're not about you being vital and alive in this moment and being there. It's a real important thing. And here's a little exercise. Here's also an acting exercise that I used to give people, and that is they're high bounce balls. You've seen them. Sometimes they sell them for puppies. They're high bounce balls. They have little ridges or something on them, little knobs, and they bounce in all directions. Well, if you can play that and talk at the same time to people, it keeps you in your body because you don't know where that's going to go. It's interesting because we want to anticipate catching that ball, catching that ball, catching that ball, catching that ball. And then that way we can think and we can talk. But if we're just having to improvise, that's a really good thing. You don't know where it's going to go. You got to run for it. You got to keep talking the whole time, and it'll show you whether you're in a good child's mind or high self mind in that moment. And they're interesting. And it's a good exercise to practice with. Okay. It's great if you're doing a speech, by the way, to keep you in the moment of the speech. All right. Number 8. Thinking an absence of effusiveness means something is wrong. So, we talk about this. Believing an absence of a smiley face in an email means someone's mad at you. Or interpreting you did a good job as negative because you were expecting to be told you were doing a great job. Leaving out love at the end of an email. If somebody receives something like that and goes, oh my God, you don't love me anymore. Oh, they're mad at me. And your mind runs into these negative thoughts and feelings. Guys, this is what you're doing. You're thinking the absence of some sort of effusiveness, which means a lot of outpouring of emotion toward you in a positive, loving way. Means that something's wrong, that you haven't done a good enough job, that you are faulty in some way, that you cannot be loved. Boy, are those things just blooming wrong. They're just blooming wrong. Those are not true. Challenge that. Okay? Challenge that. Thinking you have to do it. Or you'll trigger somebody. Don't play that game with them. Don't do that. Just be real. The greatest thing you can offer the world is being real. But do you think all of these cognitive distortions let you be real? Let you be authentic, who you really are? Now you're getting it. No. You, the real you, the authentic you, lies under that, you see. Number 9, unrelenting standards. The belief that achieving unrelentingly high standards is necessary to avoid a catastrophe. For example, the belief that making any mistakes at all will lead you to your colleagues thinking you're useless. If that's your fear, you better challenge yourself, because you're the one that's thinking you're useless. Do you understand? You're the one. Is it true? You may be stuck. Are you useless? That's pronouncing on your whole life. Or you've just been useless the last week because you had the flu or COVID or something. God forbid. Unrelenting standards also have sisters. Perfectionism, one of them, and always needing to be right. Always needing to be right. Unrelenting standards, perfectionism, always needing to be right. See, you're self-attacking with these things. First of all, unrelenting standards always keeps you off base. Do you understand that? You never know whether you're going to meet them or not. It's a compulsion to meet them. And they're pretty silly most of the time. I had a woman who had an unrelenting standard, and she was getting older, and she wasn't feeling well, and she had a large family. And she cooked this humongous holiday dinner for them every year, and they all came to her house, and nobody lifted a finger but her. She was angry by the time she got there. She didn't enjoy it. She did it for years, even though I kept saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Gosh, and the only thing she could say, well, it's tradition. And I'm going to say to you what I said to her. There are no enlightened traditionalists. This was not a smart way to work in this day and time. Everybody needed to bring something. They needed to do it at somebody else's house. Come on. There are a lot of ways to get together without absolutely sending you to the asylum. Okay? But you have to be willing to change it. You have to be, first of all, self-aware and willing to wake up to what you're doing and how damaging it is. Right? Unrelenting standards, perfectionism, always needing to be right, show a true insecurity. And the insecurity is born out of you don't know who you are. That's all that's going on here. Nothing's wrong with you. You just simply don't know who you are, and that you're all right just the way you are, and that mistakes everybody makes. And that this is a huge clue that you have judged yourself harshly as something less than if you in any way make a mistake. And I think I told you all last week or the week before that I did a class on this kind of thing, on mistakes. And I found some sort of quote that for every 10 decisions you make, 4 of them will probably be mistakes because you don't have all the information or something. Guys, we all make mistakes. So here we are back to something that I had said in the beginning, and that is the acceptance of all of you. The light and the dark, the good and the bad, the selfish and the generous, the everything. Put your arms around it all. Oh no, you're saying if I don't make these, I am lesser if I don't hit these standards. If I don't make these standards. I'm no good. I don't deserve to live. Or whatever else you're telling yourself, which is crazy, quite frankly. That's the only way I use that word. But it's irrational to feel that way, you know? And this is also, dears, putting tasks above people. And that's never going to work out well. Because it isn't about these standards that, by the way, only exist in your head. It's not about the perfection. The woman that I told you about that would not do her holiday dinner differently, her whole family would have much rather had a kinder, gentler mother than this incredible shrew that existed around the holidays. But she had to get those tasks done until she woke up and realized, wait a minute, I don't have to do that anymore. She's much happier now. Number 10. Entitlement beliefs. Entitlement beliefs. Believing the same rules that apply to others should not apply to you. For example, believing that you shouldn't need to do an internship, even if the normal path to employment in your industry is internship. I've got even a more serious one than that. I know a woman who never has felt entitled, but never has felt empowered. And so cancer has come along. All of a sudden, we see an incredible need for attention. And this is the histrionic personality as well, right? Need attention. And when she does, and she likes people that give it to her, and she doesn't like people that don't give it to her. And here comes cancer, because she's got cancer, and by God, she's entitled to that attention. So it's added a layer of distress that is just unbelievable. She gets furious at people that don't give her attention. Pretty interesting, huh? And you look at this as a therapist and you go, this woman's going to go away if I don't play her game to a certain extent to try to get her beyond this. Because as long as she's still in it, she's compelled to like people who give it to her and not like people who don't. And the problem with this is you can't get well if you're playing that game, you see. I think there's a beautiful word here. And you know, we're talking about the esoteric journey as we're talking together. And there's a beautiful word here, which is ordinary. Why not be ordinary? Ordinary. Ordinary means we're human. We're just like all the other humans. And do you realize that it's the acceptance of that and all the flaws and all the everything that we even sometimes want to push away that brings us the energy whereby we can open ourselves on deeper and more profound conscious levels where we find extraordinariness. Do you get that? The extraordinary is in the ordinary. The divinity is in the humanness. Do you understand? That's the remarkable thing about this. The joys and the sorrow. We have to be self-aware. Thank you, Becky. We have to be self-aware and look at this. Oh, I wish there was some sort of magic pill out there. There isn't. But this wonderful journey that is all about you, it starts out with self-absorption and ends up with your finding such compassion for the whole world because that was you and is you in the ego child's mind. But now you're doing something else, and that's when you really can go out there and let that light shine without any effort at all, without any grasping or histrionics or catastrophizing or saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. I need attention. You don't need that anymore. You're just a good person in this moment, creating lovely things and helping where you can. So these entitlement beliefs, oh my Lord, attention seeking, and guys, it's not just psychologically damaging, like positive psychology said, and we made a joke about that because that didn't sound very positive, right? But they had a good definition for it. Guys, it's psychologically damaging, yes, but it's also physically damaging, because when you have such a need for attention and you want entitlement, and by gosh, the cancer comes along and gives that to you, it's affecting you physically too. But you've had a long series of wake-up calls that you have not heeded. So heed them now, for God's sake. It's not about you doing something wrong or right. We all wake up when we're supposed to wake up. We are supposed to wake up. What do you think wisdom is? What do you think getting a gene is about? It's about making us smarter and wiser, right? With less effort. So, guys, I'm so thrilled that so many of you all are younger than I am, and you're on this path, and I say that's just the most wonderful thing in the world. But don't beat yourself up because you weren't aware of all this when you were 6 years old. That's like beating up a 6-year-old for not knowing how to drive a car that you weren't supposed to. That wasn't what you were supposed to have. You have it when you're supposed to have it. It's like an alarm that rings inside of you. Here's what you need to do now. You get the call, Thank you for heeding the call and for listening to the show. Number 11, justification and moral licensing. Justification and moral licensing. She goes on to say, for example, when you've made progress toward a goal and therefore you feel that it's okay to act in any way that's inconsistent with it. So, I am a bit selective about who I work with these days. I have trained some very good healers to help me. I take people I'm supposed to take. I feel very strongly if I'm supposed to work with someone. Several years ago, a couple came to me, and they were the most hateful people I've ever known. Well, maybe as bad as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. These people were really hateful. And they were married, and, you just wanted to say, which is completely inappropriate to say, oh, all right, already, go and get divorced, but you can't say that. but you certainly are human enough to say, that's what I wanted to say. These people were so hateful. I'm going to talk about the man in a minute, but the woman was just as hateful in her way. So do know that. This was a mutual thing. But the man really did this justification of moral license. And I don't know whether you've ever read about the Peter Pan syndrome. It's certainly not in the DSM or anything, but it's a form of emotional immaturity. And man, did he have it, all right? So she was very straight and straight-laced and, kind of puritanical in her belief about everything. And she would come down on him. She would nag him. She would make him, toe the line. She would threaten and scream and yell and throw things. Very histrionic. And he would shape up. He'd be good for about 8 to 10 days, and then he'd disappear for 2 or 3 days on a bender of drugs or alcohol. And he'd come back with his tail between his legs, and she'd yell and scream and carry on again. But he felt justified, and then he had a moral license to do that because he had been so good. Wow. No. The whole purpose of waking up, the whole purpose of resolving these things in the ego child's mind and waking up to a higher self-mind is that life is better there. We're relieved of all this struggle and grasping and fighting and conflict within ourselves and with other people. And he had no intention of doing either, And she can't force that. She made the wrong damn choice for her husband, quite frankly. She was a child. And, that's not going to work. Number 12. It's number 12, and we got 12 minutes left in the show. All right. Belief in a just world is number 12. For example, she uses this, for example, believing that poor people must deserve to be poor. I don't like that example. I've got other examples I can probably whip up in my mind. But first of all, in consciousness, there's no such thing as deserving. You don't deserve anything. Neither do I. We don't deserve anything. That's ridiculous. It's based on the old idea of God that we have to earn God in some way, and that is so totally incorrect, because what we have to do is open to more and more of God as the aspect that we are. Not earn, not be good little boys and girls. In fact, if we're earning, it always keeps us a good little or a bad little girl and boy. It keeps us in that young ego child's mind. There's no such thing as deserving. Okay. Nevertheless, belief in a just world is a very, very important cognitive distortion that many of us carry and really don't talk about, but it creates a lot of conflict inside of us, because here's the bottom line: this is not a just world. It's not. Bad guys get away with things. Good guys don't get away with things. Nobody's a bad or good guy. Everything's shades of gray. This is not a just world. Everybody doesn't get what they deserve. No. That they think, because there's no such thing as that, right? No. I know a woman who was furious about this her whole life. She was furious about this because she had an aunt, I think it was an aunt, some family member, who died, all right? And she had a big honker of a ring, some sort of big diamond ring or big something ring. And she was furious that somebody else in the family got that. Furious. To this day, even though I don't see her very much, to this day, if I brought that subject up, she'd go off to the races. Really? Come on. Come on. It's not a just world. Now, how do you deal with that? Well, first of all, I think it's a real powerful thing for you to admit it's not a just world and to accept that fact. And then to go about making a good world for yourself. You heard me say earlier something about the herd mentality, okay? So part of this belief in a just world is buying into some sort of herd mentality, you know. If you had given a lot of time and energy to this woman, she should give you something better than she did and left you in her will. Wow. Really? Can't you go out and buy your own ring? Sure you can. Okay, excuse me. Now, I see somebody on the line right now. Let's go to them, and then we'll come back. This is a 773 exchange. Hello, I'm Martha. To whom am I speaking?
Hi, this is Joe. How are you?
Hey, Joe. Have I talked to you before? Your name and voice sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, I remember you, though, dear heart. I do. Well, hello. What can I do for you today?
I'm at that place where, I'm not married and I don't have kids, and, I visit family and I love my family. I do feel pretty insignificant. So I don't know how to get past this experience.
All right. Can I have more information? I already have an opinion that I think is going on, but I want to hear it confirmed. That's where I am right now. Tell me about when you say you're close to your family, and why do you feel insignificant when you're close to your family?
I think I've always, I don't know. Everyone in my family, it's a pretty matriarchal family, and you're gauged by your experience as a family.
Mm-hmm. And
and I've been the youngest and don't have a family, always been.
Oh.
So I've gauged my worth with my career, and my career isn't going anywhere, and my love life isn't there, and I don't have a family. So it's like, all the things that will boost your ego are all gone, or not there.
Let me ask you, what do you want from this family of origin? You want something from them, so what is it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you started to say recognition. I think that's a fine answer. You said you started to say that. I think there's something.
To recognize that I'm a family member. Instead it's like, I'm just the person that's got to be there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but here's what I want to put on the table. You already have your significant relationship in your life. You may not know that, but you already have it. Guess why somebody else can't come in? It's the family of origin. Why are you locked into them? Because you still want them to recognize that you're somebody, right? You want them to acknowledge you, appreciate you, see you for who you are. And darling, they're just families that might not be able to do that because of themselves, not because of you. You're locked into, that's your significant relationship. This is what Spirit was telling me when you first called. You can't bring anybody else in. You're still playing this game of wanting something for them, and you haven't waked up to the fact that this family is never going to give it to you. If you could wake up to that, you could create your own family. But all your energy is running into them. and how badly they make you feel, and the fantasy that they may wake up and help you one day and see who you are. No, that's not going to happen. You've got the relationship with him you've got. So now it's about you freeing yourself from that relationship as the significant relationship in your life and going on to create your own life. You've got to stop wanting from this family. Do you understand? They're the ones that are in your way. You've got them at the center of your universe instead of the sun, which is you, by the way. Everything revolves, all the energy in you revolves around that. And, darling, you're not going to get it. I'm crazy about you. You've got lots going for you. I mean, Joe, I recognized you from 2 or 3 years ago. What's not special about you, honey? I'm seeing it, and I'm a virtual stranger on the other end of the phone. You're not, your little girl inside of you, this ego child's mind still wants from this family. And you're not supposed to want from this family anymore. You're supposed to grow up and go on and create another wonderful experience in life for yourself. But there's too much energy going in.
Nobody wanted me. I haven't had, I'm not married. Nobody, it's not like I didn't date. I dated a lot. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't,
Babe,
I don't know what to do now.
Listen to me. You're still the child in this family of origin. That's why you're still the child in this family of origin. This is your primary relationship. So
I don't know what to do next. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how to get out of.
Well, have you worked with anybody? I would say look at my website and call one of my marvelous facilitators, because they've been trained in how to do this. Okay, you can give me a call and we can talk about this and who would be great for you. But you're stuck with the energy connected to this family. What we would do is start unhooking you from this family so that you can not have that as your primary relationship. That's where all the energy is going right now. I felt it when you first started presenting the problem. That's where your energy is. So nobody can come in. Nobody can, as you say, want you. You don't want anybody else. You want them. You want them to respond to you. Sweetheart, sometimes it isn't about us. Sometimes it's about them not being able to do that. And why isn't that all right? The bottom line is it is. It's just the little girl feels really deprived and wants them to respond to you. Well, that's lovely, but they're not going to do that. You've got the relationship you've got. Let's go on and create a wonderful life for you. Let's grow past this. But you have it energetically.
90 seconds.
Whoops. Joe, I've just gotten the 90 seconds mark.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, my darling. If you want to talk about this more, my website, you can write me at Martha and Martha Novak and send me your phone number. And I am delighted to talk with you. But, if I were you, I'd call one of my wonderful facilitators and start getting some work on yourself so you can unhook from them and go on and live a great life. This isn't about you. It's about them, you see. You have made your life about them and what you did not get instead of about you and what you can create. Joe, thank you so much for calling, darling. I want to follow this. I really do. And I wish you all the success in the world. But that is the best I've got to give right now in the time we've got. Guys, thank you so much for listening. And please do, if you will be kind enough to certainly recommend us to others, I'd appreciate it. We'll be back next week finishing this up. Okay? And I will certainly be praying for you when we get off the phone. Particularly you, Joe. All right? Okay. Y'all take care of yourselves. And thank you so much for listening.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Thank you so much for listening. Okay. Love you. Bye-bye.